The scale of change that's needed may seem extraordinarily large, but I suggest that we can make it extraordinarily quickly, because the speed of evolution of new media is drastically reducing both the cost of organizing and the time it takes to do so. I put these just few little samples of new media that some of you will know about. Thank you. And don't dismiss Facebook, by the way. It's now up to half a billion people users. The biggest growth demographic on Facebook is the over 55-year-olds. It grew 920% last year. Okay, this is people connecting. I suggest this is the connections that are being made in the global brain. You know, it's like the neural connections where we all connect to each other and start sharing information. The example which I'm most familiar with is of transition towns, and transition towns made very good use of new media, and it's enabled transition towns to thrive because of the low cost of organizing and the low cost of communications and sharing information. In New Zealand, we've done it quite differently than almost any other country in that we don't have a central organization. We're an NGO without the G. Right? So there is no organization called Transition Towns in New Zealand per se, but there is a website, and if you go there, you'll find that there were 445,000 unique visitors to that site last year, 200,000 page views, 200 visits a day, a great deal of activity. But to truly describe Transition Towns, I really need to introduce Rob Hopkins, who has held this idea very carefully, rather like you would a child, not too tightly, but with great care. And he's described Transition Town's idea as a catalyst that gets communities and organizations to look at the move away from oil dependency as a tremendous opportunity, a chance to herald in a great economic, social, and cultural renaissance. There's now 317 official transition towns, more than that number of unofficial transition towns in the world, and it touches 32 different countries. That's all happened in 4 years, since the end of 2006. So it's an idea which has huge appeal. And it's an idea which allows people to express themselves and their version of their response to the challenges of the day in their own unique way. I'm going to talk about an example that is not directly in this under the umbrella of transition towns, but I think the beauty of the relocalization movement is that it takes many, many different forms. And the one that I want to talk to you about is in this area of food, because I believe that food, if we can handle that issue, then we can look at all of the other issues with a little bit more grace and time up our sleeve if we can handle the human needs for food. It's a story of my friend Pete Russell, and it's a story of a turnaround. Pete Russell was a passionate, energetic entrepreneur, importing foodstuffs from Europe and distributing them all over Australia, totally unsustainable. He came to New Zealand with an intention to find opportunities for exporting some of our food to the world, until he heard Sue Kedgley give a talk one night on Waiheke about the state of our world's food system. And stumbling upon the information that had far-reaching implications caused him to research and do a 180-degree turn to focus on developing local food systems. He started looking at ways of how can we feed more people locally and do that in a way that has positive social, environmental, and economic outcomes. And he started a thing called UBI, which is 4 O's, BY, and stands for out of our own backyards. It's a food box delivery scheme, and if you think that's small fry, the food box delivery schemes in the UK now total 400,000 food box deliveries a week. The growth was 53% between 2006 and 2007, which was 50% greater than the largest supermarket chains in the UK. So there's a revolution happening in our food system, and it's happening in all areas. It's happening in economics with people coming up with their own local currencies, looking at how they can make their own shelter using local materials. Down in Turangi now, the Center for Alternative Technology is just being born down there, and if you ever want to visit, go and check out what Brian and Joe are doing in Turangi. And when people ask me, well, how does this work in terms of the scale of change that's needed? Well, I suggest that we don't need huge change. We don't need to see the evidence of huge change right now, but we need the examples, because if the examples are there, then when the need arises, people will pick them up and they will run with them. And I've run out of time. Thank you.